Hi, how's this week starting out for you? Where I'm at, the air is finally breathable. I hope you have good air to breathe. I am wanting to give you a little feedback and guidance based on the discussion work we've done so far, and to have you kind of go back to that in light of what's coming up, right? So I'm going back here to SharePoint, which was meant to help you think about what I call the two legs of art history, meaning formal analysis is one leg and the other is historical context. And together you walk with both legs. So the idea is, how do we do both? What I'm seeing in this, in the work you've done so far, is a really strong response to understanding the sensory basis of formal analysis and descriptive writing. And even though there's certainly a lot still to learn for a lot of people with the terminology about modeling, shading, value, hue, you're able to be applying a lot of those terms and understanding why we do formal analysis. And that's part of what you should be looking at when you are dealing in this module with the medieval manuscripts, the formal elements. So go back and look at these rich descriptive analyses that focus on things like line and color in such depth and detail, because you want to do the same thing with the manuscripts in your medieval monk colophon assignment. Often, though, the historical side of things can feel vaguer to people. So in this assignment, I was asking you to start thinking about historical context by thinking about the questions that you need to know to fully understand the artwork and that you can't know through formal analysis, right? So that's why I cited Panofsky and asked you to reference Panofsky to help you think about this idea that some things are naturally knowable, but most of the information we need in the artwork is conventional to a specific time and place. So many people were interested in kind of the iconographic questions about how do you identify what's going on in the artwork? Who are the people? Do the colors have symbolic meaning? This deals with kind of how there's a historical knowledge that goes with the content of the artwork. Then you want to expand outward from the artwork itself to the social world that produced the artwork. And Mia did a great job drawing our attention to that with some questions that should always be on your mind when you are analyzing artwork. What purpose did this originally serve? Absolutely think about that with the medieval manuscripts. Was it simply decorative, or is there a more religious use for it? Overwhelmingly, in the ancient and medieval world, most art was very purposeful, not simply decorative, because materials were so time-consuming to produce, as the videos show. And I want you to think about that with the videos, kind of the labor that goes into the making of these manuscripts, the labor of love. Who commissioned this? One of the most important questions, and we're going to be revisiting this going forward. Who is the patron? The dirty little secret of art history is money. The person who pays for the artwork deeply puts their stamp on what that artwork is. We're used to thinking about artists today expressing a personal vision. That is a rare thing in the history of art. Overwhelmingly, artists are craftspeople serving a patron, and the patron is setting the tone and deciding what values are to be expressed. So you want to think of the monastery as a particular kind of social world that gave rise to a certain way of doing things, making things, and thinking about things. Here's the picture of the artist and the painter in the Scriptorium at San Salvador de Tabara, making a manuscript in Spain in 970. Here's the drawing reconstruction of the monastery at St. Gaul, not only with its church and its other workshops, but with its places for the sheep and the cattle that will give rise to the vellum and the parchment, thinking about all of that as a lived experience. So this environment, with its values, is part of what produces the work and is expressed in the work. And you'll see in some of our upcoming modules how this style developed in the monasteries gets adapted, elaborated, becomes more ornamental for the royals, how there's a shift a subtle shift to make it more aristocratic. So we can talk about kind of the art in terms of the period of time, the place and the culture and the society, but also in terms of the class of the patrons or the viewers. And think ahead then, because that's one of the things you'll be dealing with in Module 6, where we'll be talking about different art for different economic classes in terms of architecture and churches built for pilgrims of different classes. And we'll see a really brilliant, excellent film inside the medieval mind, Power, that is very much about the brutalization of the laboring classes and the privileges of the aristocratic classes. So one of the things we're getting at here is the idea of a period eye, that there are different historical periods that have a different point of view, a different set of values, interests, concerns, and that's expressed in the art. When we divide history into periods, there are broad, huge sweeps of time that have conventional designations: the ancient, the medieval, the Renaissance, and then the early modern and the modern period. So you began this course kind of at the close of the ancient world, with the Roman Empire being the mighty empire in the Mediterranean arena and then collapsing. And the medieval period is marked by these dominant monotheisms, Christianity and Islam, and political and religious authority are fused. So whether you're a king or a caliph, you are both a political and a religious leader. And your authority is based on your religious preeminence, not just your political power. They're inseparable. As we move into the Renaissance, we'll start to see a slight shift from this strictly religious worldview and the beginnings of science. So those are broad sweeps of time, right? Notice that those broad sweeps get smaller as we move, though. History actually accelerates over time. The ancient period covers 3000 BCE, the development of written language, to the Roman Empire collapsing, so more than 3,000 years. Medieval period, roughly 1,000 years. Now we're dealing with 200 years, and by the time you reach us in the 21st century, history is moving so fast that we could actually, you could have a book about the Trump administration's 2-month period when X happened. And in fact, you can have history being made at the pace of the internet, where you can have a president tweeting out something and then people responding to that tweet, and by the next day, articles on that tweet. 2020 looks back and wants to study this mural painted in Washington, D.C. on the street. This person will ask the same questions, right, of this Black Lives Matter mural, right? Who is the patron? Well, it was the mayor of Washington, D.C. What was the purpose? Who are the intended viewers? Why is it done in these colors? Who comes and sees it? And how do they experience it walking down the street? How does it relate to the monuments in the distance? How does it relate to the occupant of the White House or the Congress? What is the political system? What is this responding to? All of these questions are essential to understand this mural. You can't just talk about it having nice, bold, bright yellow and a strong font and what it says. You have to know all of that. So that's exactly what we are going to be reconstructing more and more detail as we move forward.